Every year, my family would take a road trip, and though we lived in Florida, we only went to Disney World once or twice. I think the main issues were the price and the fact that you had to plan things out months in advance. So we'd usually go see another theme park or a different type of attraction. I remember one year, probably when I was around 8, we went to this orange juice museum. I guess it made sense it was there, since Florida is known for its orange farms. The museum was in a small town, tucked away off the main highway. It was a quaint little building, painted in bright, cheerful colors. As soon as we walked in, I could smell the sweet, tangy scent of oranges. The walls were lined with photographs and old newspaper clippings, telling the history of the orange industry in Florida. We walked through the exhibits, learning about the different types of oranges, how they were grown and harvested, and how orange juice was made. It was interesting, but nothing really out of the ordinary. That is, until we reached the last room. This room was dark, lit only by a few dim lamps. In the center stood a tall glass of orange juice, glowing an eerie orange color. For some reason, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I couldn't take my eyes off it. My parents and my little sister had already moved on to the next room, but I couldn't move. I felt drawn to the glass of orange juice. I reached out and touched it. It was cold to the touch, and I could feel the juice swirling inside the glass. Suddenly, the room started to spin. The walls seemed to close in on me, and I felt like I was falling. I screamed, but no sound came out. I was trapped in a swirling vortex of orange juice. I woke up in a cold sweat, back in my bed at home. It had all been a dream, or so I thought. The next day, we went back to the orange juice museum. I was scared, but I had to see if the last room was really there. And it was, but this time, the room was empty. There was no glass of orange juice, no swirling vortex, just an empty room. I never told my parents about my dream. I didn't want them to think I was crazy or something. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that something strange had happened at that museum. Incidentally, I never drank orange juice again. Back in my sophomore year of high school, I started dating this really attractive girl named Kylie. One of the things about her was that she always had orange juice at lunch, and sometimes even during class, and there was this running joke that she was obsessed with it and her family belonged to this orange juice cult. Obviously, I didn't think that was true, but as time went on, I honestly began to question it. It started innocently enough. Kylie would bring a carton of orange juice to school every day. She'd sip on it during lunch and sometimes even during class. It was just part of her routine, and I didn't think much of it at first. But then, as our relationship grew, I started noticing things. Kylie's family was always drinking orange juice too. At her house, there were cartons of it everywhere. They even had a special fridge just for orange juice. It was a little weird, but I brushed it off as just a family quirk. Then one day, Kylie invited me to a family gathering. It was apparently a big deal because she had never introduced me to her family before. When we arrived, everyone was sipping on orange juice. They all greeted me warmly, but there was something off about their smiles. The gathering was in a large old house in the middle of the woods. The atmosphere was strange, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As the night went on, I noticed that everyone was acting a little strange. They would whisper to each other and then look at me. I felt like I was being watched. At first I tried to ignore it, but then Kylie's aunt pulled me aside. She told me that the family had a special bond with orange juice. She said that it was more than just a drink to them. It was a way of life. She told me that if I wanted to be with Kylie, I had to understand that. Now I was genuinely freaked out, but I also didn't want to lose Kylie. So I just nodded and said I understood. But as the night went on, things got even stranger. Kylie's family started chanting in a language I didn't understand. They were all holding hands and swaying back and forth. I tried to leave, but Kylie stopped me. She told me that it was too late, that I was already a part of it. I had no idea what she meant, but I was scared. The next thing I knew, I was being dragged into a room. Kylie's family surrounded me, chanting louder and louder. They were holding cups of orange juice, and they were pouring it over my head. I tried to scream, but the juice was in my mouth, almost choking me. The next thing I remember was waking up in a hospital bed. The doctors told me that I had been found in the woods, unconscious. They said that I must have had a reaction to something in the orange juice. I tried to tell them exactly what happened, but it didn't seem like they believed me. One of the doctors was convinced I just had a bad dream. However, I know the truth. Kylie's family is part of an orange juice cult, and I was lucky to get out alive. I did break up with Kylie after this, and now I can't even look at a carton of orange juice without feeling sick. For my degree plan, I had to take this CAD course, and for this one project, we had to come up with a model of an everyday type object. I chose to make a carton of orange juice. Why? I don't know. Maybe it was the vibrant color, the promise of freshness and energy, or something else that drew me to it. Or maybe it was just the first thing that popped into my head. Either way, I had no idea that this seemingly innocuous project would lead me down a path of terror and madness. The model itself was simple enough to create. I spent hours perfecting every detail, from the glossy finish of the carton to the tiny drops of condensation that clung to its surface. I even went so far as to create a realistic label, complete with nutritional information and a cheerful orange mascot. But as I stared at the finished product on my computer screen, something about it seemed off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but the longer I looked at the orange juice carton, the more uneasy I felt. It was as if there was something lurking just beneath the surface, something dark and sinister that was waiting to be unleashed. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was just my imagination, but the sense of dread only grew stronger. That night, I had the most vivid and disturbing dream. I was back in the CAD lab, staring at the orange juice carton on my computer screen. But this time, the carton seemed to be alive. It was pulsing and writhing, as if something was trapped inside it, trying to get out. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. The carton was drawing me in, pulling me closer and closer until I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, but the fear lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the orange juice carton, that it was somehow connected to the darkness I had sensed in my dream. From that day on, strange things began to happen. I started seeing the orange juice carton everywhere I went, even when I knew it couldn't possibly be there. It would appear in the corner of my eye, only to vanish when I turned to look at it. I started hearing whispers in the night, whispers that seemed to be coming from the carton itself. And worst of all, I began to feel a thirst, a desperate, unquenchable thirst that could only be satisfied by one thing: orange juice. I tried to resist, but the thirst was too strong. I found myself sneaking out in the middle of the night to buy carton after carton of orange juice, drinking it in huge gulps until I was sick. And with each sip, I could feel the darkness inside me growing stronger, taking over my mind and my soul. In the end, I realized that the orange juice carton was more than just a simple CAD project. It was a vessel, a conduit for something ancient and evil, something that had been waiting for centuries to be unleashed upon the world, and now, it was too late. The darkness had taken hold of me, and there was no escape. So, if you ever find yourself staring at a seemingly innocent carton of orange juice, take my advice and look away. It's not worth the risk. Trust me, I know. For a while, I wore the mascot uniform for our local minor league baseball team. It was a giant cartoonish orange, and a lot of the marketing for the team featured the orange alone with a glass of orange juice. The job was fun, if a bit sweaty, and I enjoyed interacting with the fans and cheering on the team. One evening, after a particularly grueling game in the summer heat, I was eager to get out of the mascot suit and cool off. I retreated to the locker room, where I could finally peel off the heavy, cumbersome costume. As I did so, I noticed something strange about the orange juice that was always part of the mascot's promotional material. It seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the locker room. Curious, I approached the glass, my hand outstretched. As soon as my fingers touched the cool glass, I felt a jolt of electricity run through me. Suddenly the room seemed to spin, and I found myself falling into the glass of orange juice. I screamed, but no sound came out. I was trapped inside the glass, surrounded by a sea of orange juice. I tried to swim, to break free, but the juice held me in place. It was thick and viscous, and it seemed to pull me deeper with every movement. Panic set in as I realized I couldn't breathe. I was drowning in orange juice. Then, just as suddenly as I had fallen in, I was pulled out. Gasping for air, I looked around to see the mascot costume standing over me, its cartoonish features twisted into a sinister grin. It reached out a hand to me, but I scrambled away, terrified. I ran out of the locker room, out of the stadium, and never looked back. To this day, I can't stand the sight of orange juice, and sometimes, late at night, I swear I can hear the faint sound of a mascot laughing in the distance. One time in high school health class, we had to do this annoyingly detailed report on the nutrition of a common food or drink. I chose orange juice because why not? Little did I know that this seemingly innocuous assignment will lead to one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. It was a typical day in Mrs. Henderson's health class. The sun was shining outside, but inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as we all scribbled away on our reports. I had chosen orange juice partly because I thought it would be an easy topic. After all, how complicated could the nutritional value of orange juice be? I spent the next few days researching everything I could about orange juice. I learned about the vitamins, the minerals, and the sugar content. I even found out that the juice could come from concentrate or be freshly squeezed. It was all very interesting, but nothing out of the ordinary. That's when things started to get weird. One night, while I was working on my report in my room, I heard a strange scratching noise coming from the kitchen. I tried to ignore it, but it got louder and louder until I couldn't take it anymore. Then I got up to investigate. As soon as I entered the kitchen, the noise stopped. I looked around, but everything seemed normal. Just as I was about to head back to my room, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. One of the cartons of orange juice in the fridge was glowing. I blinked, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me, but when I looked again, the carton was still glowing. I slowly reached out and touched it, half expecting it to be hot, but it was cold, just like any other carton of orange juice. I was about to open it when I heard that scratching noise again, this time much louder and much closer. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just then, the carton of orange juice exploded, sending glass shards and sticky orange liquid flying everywhere. I screamed and ran back to my room, slamming the door shut behind me. I could hear that scratching noise getting closer and closer, but then it stopped right outside my door. I held my breath, waiting for whatever it was to go away. But it didn't. The scratching started again, this time more frantic. I could hear it trying to get in, trying to get to me. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, but before I could say anything, the door burst open. Standing in the doorway was a creature made entirely of orange juice. Its eyes were glowing like the carton had been, and it was dripping with sticky, sweet liquid. I screamed again and tried to run, but it grabbed me with its sticky hands and pulled me towards it. I don't remember much after that. I woke up the next morning in my bed, covered in sticky orange juice. My report was on my desk, finished and neatly typed up. I never told anyone about what happened that night. I just turned in my report and tried to forget about it. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the fridge is humming, I swear I can hear that scratching noise again. And I know that somewhere, that creature made of orange juice is still out there, waiting for its next victim.